Tonight's topic is one of my favorite topics because tonight's topic is what I wish I would have done. And this is such a powerful topic because it rewires our brain to do something different next time. And a lot of people get stuck in patterns thinking that there's something wrong with them, thinking that they are a certain type of person, or thinking that the fact that they keep making the same mistakes over and over and over means something specific about them, usually something negative. When in fact, somebody making the same mistake over and over and over means they are stuck in stage 2 of a skill. And if you haven't watched my video on the 4 stages of a skill, put that in the comments and we will make sure that you get that video, because that alone is powerful, life-changing. So when we keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, usually what happens is we are stuck in shame and we are stuck in toxic patterns, toxic behaviors that are harming ourselves or harming others. And we tend to we make associations about what that means. We make these conclusions about ourselves, about others, about what we're capable of. And we stay stuck in these patterns thinking that we can't do any differently. And that's just not true. So what I wish I would have done is such a powerful way that we can rewire our brain to do something different next time. So what I wish I would have done differently is something that you're going to do during a repair situation or when you're on your own. So you can do this for yourself for a destructive pattern that you have towards yourself, but you can also do this with another person if you have a pattern that you are engaging in, a pattern of behavior that is also harming the relationship. So what I wish I would have done happens in a repair work conversation, and we do need to do repair work with ourselves. I was talking to a client this morning who has a pattern of engaging in a habit that is really harmful to her. And so she was working on reparenting her child self and building that trust so that she could trust herself to engage in a new pattern. So this is along those lines, and this is going to help with that same situation. So if you find yourself stuck in the same pattern over and over and over, whether it's with another person, so you're harming another person in the relationship, or you're harming yourself, and you keep making the same patterns that keep you stuck in your own life, what I wish I would have done is going to be a helpful piece to that. I also do recommend that you go and look for my repair work video. If you need help finding that, just let us know, put it in the comments, and I will make sure that you get a link to the repair work video. So what I wish I would have done is only going to take place when you've already blown it, when you've already made a mistake, when you've already sort of developed this negative pattern with someone. So you have engaged in whatever negative pattern is, whether it's shutting down in a conversation, whether it is speaking harshly to somebody, whether it is raising your voice to somebody, whatever it is, you have already engaged in that behavior. You're doing the repair work conversation, and a piece of that repair work conversation is going to be what I wish I would have said. So I'll just briefly go through the repair work so that you can know, so that even if you don't go and watch that video, which I highly recommend, that you'll know what I'm talking about. So in the repair work conversation, there are going to be several parts to it. Part of it is going to be getting consent for that conversation. Part of it is going to be giving that other person the floor and giving them time to talk about how whatever you did impacted them. Part of it will be taking responsibility, acknowledging the harm, acknowledging what they deserved. Part of it will be making a plan that you carry out for next time. Now, part of it, as you're taking accountability, you can, and I recommend talking about what you wish you would have done next time, because in order to engage in this pattern of thinking, you have to ask your brain basically to navigate a new neural pathway. So what's happening in your body when you are navigating an old pattern is your brain has you experience a trigger, you experience a feeling, and then your brain really quickly leads you to the pattern of behavior that has helped you resolve that in the past. And a lot of times our neural pathways, basically the pattern of thoughts that helps us figure out what to do next, it fires so quickly that you're really not thinking about it, that you're really it's almost automatic at a certain point because you've traveled that road so many times. And so your brain is trying to help you stay familiar, stay safe, and it keeps you in those patterns, even if those patterns are harmful. So what you're asking your brain to do when you name what you wish you would have done differently is you're asking your brain to travel a new pathway. You're asking your brain to create a new ending point that is different from where you normally end up. So if as I'm talking to somebody, I get consent for the conversation, I give them the floor, I take accountability, and then I start to say something like, what I wish I would have done is taken 3 breaths and said to you, please take your shoes to the front door, or something like that, or please make sure you're doing something else, or whatever it is that I'm replacing the negative behavior with. I am giving my brain permission to think about a different outcome than I've given it permission to think about before. So I'm basically creating a new pathway. And every time I take responsibility for that thing, I am reminding my brain that there is another possible outcome. And I'm asking my brain to go that way instead of this way that I've historically gone. So what we're doing with all of these tools that I'm teaching you, that I talk about every week, we're asking our brain to do different tasks than it is used to doing. And that is difficult and uncomfortable, but over time it gets easier and easier and easier. And the more we travel a certain neural pathway, the easier that pathway gets. And that is for things that cause us harm and things that allow us to heal. So what we're doing when we take responsibility, and specifically when we say, what I wish I would have done is this, is we're telling our brain there's a new ending point, and this is where we want to end up next time. And eventually what's going to happen as you continue to have the repair work conversations, take responsibility and give your brain that new ending point, is your brain will catch up and say, oh, I'm not supposed to end up there. I'm supposed to end up there because I've been talking about it. You've been asking your brain to allocate resources to helping you end up here by virtue of saying that. So what we talk about, what we think about, we're basically mentally allocating resources. We're telling our brain, hey, this is important to me. And so our brain gives us resources for whatever task that we're giving it. So as we do these repair work conversations, as you practice reflective listening, as you do all of the things that we talk about in this group, your brain is getting a task. Every time you come to this live, your brain is getting a task. It's saying, hey, we're prioritizing healing. Hey, I want to have healthy relationships. So every time you engage here, every time you reply to a comment, you're allocating mental resources and you're saying, brain, this is what I want you to focus on. Forgive me, I'm recovering from pneumonia. So if I cough for the rest of this live, sometimes I'll have a coughing fit. So I might need to hop off if that starts to happen. But so we're allocating mental resources toward the tasks that we want our brain to do. And here is part of what's so sad about the way that our brain works. It can work for our good and it can work for our harm. So when we shame ourselves, when we shame our kids, when we say mean things, when we punish ourselves emotionally, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, this is important. I want you to focus on this task. And so it does. And it continues to show us more and more reasons why we deserve punishment, more and more reasons why we deserve shame. So your brain is an incredible thing that will help you achieve whatever goal that you set for it. But most of the time, people don't realize that they are allocating, that they're asking their brain to do specific tasks, and that they are setting their brain in motion to help them fail, basically. And most of us grew up in a family and with patterns that have taught us to ask our brains to do really unhelpful tasks. So as you're in this group, you're going to start to learn how to ask your brain to do more helpful tasks, like help me heal, help me communicate better, help me show up for people in a meaningful way, help me do all of the things that we're working on here. So when you say to somebody, what I wish I would have done is blank, you give your brain that new pathway and you allocate mental resources toward that new pathway. So that is why it's magic. I highly recommend you go and look at the full version of the repair work video and start thinking about, what am I actually asking my brain to allocate mental resources to? How many times a day am I asking my brain to allocate mental resources to hurting myself? How many times a day? And I don't necessarily mean physically. I mean, like, how many times am I mean to myself a day? How many times am I asking my brain to be kind to myself? How many times a day am I asking my brain to find compassion towards self or toward others? How many times a day am I asking myself to direct harshness toward myself or others? Once you start paying attention to this and you make the connection between the thoughts I have and where I'm asking my brain to allocate mental resources, it's kind of mind-blowing. You will start to understand why your brain has been stuck in these thought patterns. I'll give you an example. If you are looking into buying a new car, which I am thinking about getting a new car, and I've been thinking about it for a while. So when you start thinking about a new car, or maybe it's, a new phone or a new computer, whatever it is, you have sort of this image in mind of your desired car or your desired computer or whatever it is. And so when you have that image in mind, basically, and you're thinking about it, you're basically saying to your brain, hey, this is important to me, show it to me in my experience. So you might start seeing that car more often. You might start seeing advertisements for that computer. And this is separate from the algorithm. I mean, in real life, you might, notice it when you're going through Target. You might notice that, whatever it is, you're going to notice things in your environment that reflect what you've been thinking about. And that is because you've told your brain this is important. So, what happens here is we're telling our brain, by virtue of interacting here, that this is important. This is important to me. So the car isn't the car isn't actually on the streets more. The computer isn't more prevalent in the environment. It's just that your brain has recognized this is important. So I need to serve this information back to my conscious brain so that I'm doing what she asked me to do, basically. So for you this week, viewer, I would say, pay attention to what you're asking your brain to do for you. Pay attention to what you're asking, what you're telling your brain is important, because it will do exactly what you're asking it to do. So my suggestion would be, number one, just have an inventory, start taking inventory of what you're actually asking it to do. And then start asking it to do different things. Start asking it to start asking your brain to direct compassion towards yourself, compassion towards others, forgiveness towards yourself, forgiveness toward others, bravery to handle difficult conversations, bravery to try new things. There's so many things that you can ask your brain to do, and it will do those things. So one of the other related things that I suggest that you look, or one of the other related videos I suggest that you look into is the internal framework video. So powerful, so incredible. And it's about shifting our long-standing patterns and directing our brain toward an outcome that will actually be helpful for us. So like I was talking about in the beginning, you might have these ideas of who you believe you are based on the patterns that you're stuck in. So if you have a pattern of speaking to people harshly, you might say to yourself, oh, I'm a jerk, right? So if you've been saying I'm a jerk over and over and over because you keep having these experiences where you hurt people, well, You're directing your brain's energy toward seeing all the ways in which you are a jerk. You're directing your brain's energy toward becoming more and more of a jerk because you're saying, hey, this is important to me. I think about it a lot. This is who I am. And so your brain is going to help you continue to live out that pattern. But instead, if you learn to say, hey, here's my pattern of behavior, separate from who I am as a person, here's the pattern of things I do versus this is who I am. And I am learning to such and such. I'm learning to speak to people with kindness, even when I'm upset. I'm learning to speak to people gently. I'm learning to, whatever happens to be, that is the opposite of your learned pattern of behavior, your brain will start allocating resources to help you achieve that outcome. So I'm going to leave it there. I will see you soon. I realized I forgot to do my intro that I normally do. My name is Rebecca Giannini. I'm a parenting and relationship coach. This is my group. I'm so happy that you're here. I go live every single week on Mondays at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. I will see you next week. Put any questions you have in the comments. And if you are ready to take your life to the next level, reach out to me. Let me know. I offer private coaching, I offer group coaching, and I offer a hybrid as well for people who want a little bit of both. So if you want to learn this and have me teach it to you one-on-one or teach it to you in a group setting, it will be incredible for you. So that's available. Otherwise, I will see you next week and I will talk to you soon. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.